What's on that public broadcasting service? I was playing 20 questions with a coworker once, and at the end of the game, the coworker was unable to guess the thing that I had chosen. The question that threw him off was, can you buy in a store, which I replied no. The thing that I had chosen was money. If you think about it for a while, then you may become curious as I did about the origins of currency and how it will continue to exist in the future, as it is an essential part of society. All primitive societies invest certain things with special value, which are presented on ceremonial occasions such as weddings. But these things of special value are not capable for use in everyday transactions. This is where the need for money comes from. Money makes it possible to purchase goods in a marketplace, and each holder of a note should remain confident that it is backed by a government. I would like to investigate the origins of currency, focusing primarily on early capital, paper money, and the tradability of currency in foreign markets. Dadgummit, it doesn't surprise me, but I think I lost my wallet. Shoot the scene, position light, and dress character. The idea of money comes from a need for a system of barter that exchanges government-issued credit for a good or service. No longer do you have to trade the dinnest chickens or clothing for their service. Such a process would be time-consuming and complex, taking far too long for the international services and shipments that become key in maintaining a competitive business strategy. The earliest currency used in commercial transactions consists of gold bars which need to be weighed to establish their value each time they're exchanged. The bars were eventually supplemented by gold rings for smaller sums. Money in the 3rd millennium BC seems unfashionable and even awkward, and I can imagine that primitive money fails in comparison to the balance transfers, automatic debits, interest rates, and other financial services that are readily available today. Yet, gold rings and ornaments are ideal in size and portability for use as currency because they can be worn and easily displayed. In fact, the earliest coins were made neither of gold nor silver. They were struck in electrium, a naturally occurring alloy of gold and silver that is found in the area of Mount Tumulos, which was part of ancient Lydia. In the 18th century, during the time of Hammurabi, there are records of Babylonian priests making loans. Although this is the earliest form of banking, it wasn't until the 4th century BC that banking in Greece developed into a more sophisticated activity. Greek bankers permitted private entrepreneurs to take deposits, make loans, convert money from one currency to another, and test coins for weight and purity. If you think about it, money today is still tested for its purity, and not just by bankers. When you look closely at any $5 bill or higher, you'll probably notice a security strip embedded in it or a watermark that is visible when the note is held under light. These security measures support the fair and just exchange of currency, which was previously traded by weight alone. Coins in China turned out differently than those found in Europe. Between the 7th and 3rd century BC, Chinese coins are made to look more complex than simple round coins. One type of coin resembled the metal part of a spade, and others looked like a knife blade with a handle. On the flat surfaces of the coins were Chinese characters. It must have been difficult to give customers exact change before banking. Paper money is first experimented with in China in 1910 AD. The notes were described as authentic, although currency issuers were warned of lurking dangers in their tendency to make known their freedom to print money. The Emperor of China made so many notes each year that he could buy the whole world's treasures, though it cost him nothing. By the early 15th century, inflation had become a problem, and paper currency was abolished in the Ming Empire. In Europe, coins and precious metals survived as a preferred means of payment until the 1600s. Paper currency actually didn't make its first appearance in Europe until the 17th century, and throughout the 18th century there were further experiments with banknotes. It was eventually recognized that the currency supply needed to be expanded beyond the availability of precious metals. Gold and silver are distributed infrequently throughout nature, which may explain why these metals were valuable in the first place. But in the 18th century, a practical use for these metals in electrical, chemical, and even dental applications had not fully been tested. Silver was used occasionally in medicine, and gold in the production of stained glass, but gold is also highly resistant to rust and corrosion, which makes it valuable in electrical circuits where the slightest disruption at contact points can disrupt current. Goods and services continue to be offered in exchange for currency, and confidence in paper notes increased, especially in areas where national notes are backed by a government reserve. It even became acceptable that a government should impose a temporary ban on the right of a holder of a note to exchange it for silver. This limitation was imposed in Britain during the Napoleonic Wars and lasted from 1797 to 1821. When this restriction period ended, Britain implemented the gold standard. The problem was no longer with bankruptcy, but inflation, how easily a country could produce a good or a service. Inflation. That makes me think about air and gases, like how trees give us oxygen. Too bad money doesn't grow on trees. If I have a dog and I have to walk it, how do I know I'm walking the dog and the dog isn't walking me? The foreign exchange market offers tremendous opportunities when it comes to currency. There's the US dollar, the European Central Bank issued euro, the Swiss franc, the Canadian dollar, the South African rand, the Mexican peso, the Turkish lira, and the Russian ruble, to name a few. In the US market, the dollar is supported by economic fundamentals including gross domestic product, or GDP, and employment reports. Yet other markets, like the one governed by the European Central Bank, differ from the US in an important area. Instead of maximizing employment and maintaining the stability of long-term interest rates, the European Central Bank works towards a prime principle of price stability. As a result, consumer inflation is an interest of focus in future policy decisions. Inflation is the change over time in prices paid for a good or service by consumers, and its measurement is known as the Consumer Price Index. Now that currency is everywhere, it's become necessary for the market to conduct data and economic analysis, have trading schedules, organize committees for currency issuance, and disclose policy updates. But to make money valuable in terms of cross-currency tradability, a key point remains its volatility, or the amount it rises and falls throughout a day. Don't sweat the small stuff. The earliest known coins from the Western world come from the city of Ephesus in Ionia, which is now part of Western Turkey, in about 650 BC. The use of currency has become so commonplace it is often present on hand in one form or another, yet has evolved from simple gold rings, cowries, or even banknotes to an entire marketplace where the tradability of currency and economic stability give money its value. Babylonian priests were the first to give loans, and although modern banking policy has changed since then, the need for things like interest rates still exists today. Only now it's more complicated with new financial regulations that affect depreciation, property tax, petty cash, and heck, being able to pay your rent. I'm just trying to set realistic goals right now. I'm not going to be a bank president.